All right, back with you now. President Cyril Ramaphosa says government is finalising the status of the more than 150 Palestinian refugees who arrived in South Africa a few days ago. About 130 have been granted temporary stay after fleeing Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Humanitarian aid organisation Gift of the Givers has promised to accommodate the refugees. Now, for the latest on this, I'm joined by Gift of the Givers volunteer Sarah Oosthuizen. Sarah, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. So what we are hearing, at least from the president, from the statement from Durko and from some individuals that we have spoken to here on the channel, is that apparently there is an organization that would be operating either in Israel or in Palestine, illegally so, sending messages to individuals saying we can get you out, taking some nominal fee, chartering flights and getting them onto these flights. They don't know where they are going or their final destination would be. Some until they get on the flight with the forwarding hotel accommodation itinerary of some sort. And this is how we have come to this point with these individuals that ended up at OR Tambo International Airport. We are, however, still none the wiser about what is to happen from this particular point. Did yourself as Gift of the Givers craft an agreement with BMA, with Home Affairs on what actually would be the end game with these individuals in South Africa?
Hi, thank you for having me. Just a quick correction, they certainly weren't charged a nominal fee. They were charged a hefty fee, $2,000 per person, by this organization that deserves every form of investigation possible so that it can be put to a halt. In terms of our agreements, Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman spent that Thursday consulting with high-level people in government, people that he could reach, just to plead the case that these people could exit the aeroplane and be assessed in humanitarian space where their needs could be tended to, particularly some urgent medical needs, so that they could then assert their right to either ask for asylum or to move on via transit to other countries. What happens from here, I think that is going to be the remit of government themselves and should be thoroughly investigated to see exactly what is going on behind the scenes, how these individuals got here, who bought tickets in good faith, really trying to, in essence, flee a genocide and seek a better life for their families. You're quite right. Upon arriving here, some of them were quite shocked to find that they were in South Africa. They'd been given varied stories about where they would end up.
Yeah. Now, so you're saying this, following those high-level engagements, would have resulted in what type of arrangement? I mean, is it just the 90 days that they are at their hands of the Gift of the Givers? What happens thereafter?
So Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, he stood surety for their welfare should they apply for asylum this side in South Africa. So they have been granted that 90-day asylum visa stay for now. And as we speak today, they are being briefed by a legal team on their rights, and those who wish to apply for asylum can do so. They are within their rights to do that. Regarding the other arrangements, because the Border Management Authority had said that their paperwork was insufficient, well, that again, Dr. Sooliman stood surety for their well-being, and we would like to see that investigated. However, what we had wanted originally when that flight was halted for those 13 hours on the tarmac was that this get investigated in a humanitarian way while this gets sorted out.
Yeah, so what we're getting from the statement, and maybe it could be conflicting because the individual I spoke to yesterday said there were some who would have expressed that they seek asylum. But the statement from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation says none have actually sought to apply for asylum.
So when our member, Mr. Nigel Branken, was on the boarded aeroplane, he got written and video evidence of the majority of them actively asking to apply for asylum here in South Africa, as well as members or family members who were already in South Africa who had arrived on almost exactly the same type of flight on the 28th of October, pleading with us, please, that their daughter, the one who was 9 months pregnant and on board and experiencing labor pains, please be allowed to exercise her right to apply for asylum.
And so what does that process now entail? You're saying they were being briefed by your legal team earlier today?
Yes, they are busy with it now. We have them in a safe space where they are being given, they are understanding their legal right, which is to apply for asylum or transit. They're receiving medical assessments as well as a needs analysis and everything else that they might need.
Now, as far as the government is concerned, there's been a question also around the travel all the way from Israel to Kenya, and how Kenya would have then also allowed them to travel further into South Africa. And I get a sense that BMA is saying they are now putting measures in place to curb that from happening going further. What's your understanding on how the Kenyan government would have forwarded them to South Africa with the obviously inadequate information as far as their passports and so on and so forth?
That, unfortunately, I cannot speak to. I'm not privy to intergovernmental conversations. However, the issue arose when they left the airport in Israel. They left Ramon Airport, where they were not given exit stamps by the Israeli officials. So they then traveled to Kenya without those stamps, and only there were they issued with a boarding pass on airline operated by Global Airways Lift, which then took them to Johannesburg. During this entire time, they were not even sure what their final destination would be. So the issue arose with the fact that at Ramon Airport, they were not issued these stamps. This is identical to the first flight that landed on the 28th of October, and those people were allowed to proceed through the airport and then afterwards exercise their rights, which one of them is to seek asylum. However, the change with this aeroplane that arrived this week, where they were not allowed to disembark, they were summarily told that the airplane was going to jet off with all of them on board without them able to exercise their expressed choice of asylum.
I'm sure you've seen this, Sarah, in case you haven't, but there's been this debate on social media around that particular question. There are some who are producing some kind of a slip that is generated via computer to say, well, my passport was never stamped in Israel, so there's no expectation of an exit stamp, but you are given this particular something that looks like a boarding pass that allows you to do that. So others are saying, well, Gift of the Givers is being more than truthful about this particular question of the stamp.
No, we actually have copies of their passports, images of their passports, none of them from the first flight and the second flight. None of them were issued with exit stamps at all. This is certainly not the fault of the refugees. They are coming from a genocide, and the stamps that were not issued were by the people who were inflicting the genocide upon them. I can imagine that they were in no state to question that. As for Gift of the Givers' involvement, we have absolutely no knowledge of these flights arriving. We are purely offering aid to the people upon arrival who are in humanitarian distress.
And of course, the broader call to say, well, this dispensation sets precedents that when you would have other people seeking asylum from Sudan and any other part of the world. Is this now setting precedent that this should be the standard in how they are admitted into the country?
The issue there are two issues. The one is that there is no stamp. That must be investigated. Why and who is responsible for the issue of there being no exit stamp? The second issue is one of humanitarian care, to which South Africa this is what we offer. We offer asylum to genuine people in need. Refugees from a genocidal war for sure fall within their rights to apply for asylum. Whether that is granted or not, that is the remit of our government. Our contestation with what happened this week was the fact that people were held against their will in inhumane conditions on a boarded aeroplane and not allowed to exercise their expressed wish.
Sarah, appreciate your time. Let's leave it there. That is volunteer for Gift of the Givers there, that Sarah Oosthuizen.